Hey guys, welcome. This is another episode of the Guides Cast. I'm here with Charles Chachi Averett. He is the owner of Spotted Dog Outfitters. From the moment I met Chachi, just incredibly genuine dude. Somebody that I think has an incredible business mind as well for somebody starting an outfitter. And I'm super excited to pick his brain a little bit more about the business side, about fly fishing in general. And from the moment I met you, I immediately thought, wow, what an incredible guy, true entrepreneur in the fly fishing industry. So super excited to sit down with
Yeah.
you for a little bit.
Man, thank you. That might be the kindest intro anyone's ever given me. But hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to get on here and talk about fly fishing with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess let's go from the start. First time I ever called you, I
Yep.
gave you a call. I remember I went, hey, I was looking at your name on your website. I was like, Charles or Chachi? Like, which one am I going to throw out right now? What's going to
Yeah.
happen? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go original. Like, I'm going to go with Charles. So I go, hey, is this Charles? And I just got on the other line, Chachi. And I was like, damn, completely messed it up.
Yeah, no,
So tell me, tell me the story behind the name Chachi. I know I already know, but would love for the listeners to know. What's
all
that all
right.
about?
I'm going to give you the full scoop, okay? Like, this is the first recorded. I was super embarrassed of this when I was growing up, but when I was born, my name was Charles, obviously, Charles William Averett, very formal. Anyways, um, I had a train onesie and it had choo choo trains on it. My brother called me Choo Choo Chachi for I don't know how long. Thankfully, the the choo choo side of it kind of dropped at some point. I don't know, but Chachi just stuck. I mean, my parents call me that. My wife calls me that. My kids actually, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. My kids think that's my first name. So yeah, I mean, even on like all of my social media handles are all Chachi. Like it's just kind of absorbed it. I've never like had this formal business that I needed to go by Charles with. So, so I just kind of always stuck with Chachi. So.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
It's actually very disarming. I think it's great. Other than when you cold call somebody and say Charles and get on the other line, Chachi.
It's all
Dang,
good.
well,
It's all
it happens.
good.
And so your family, your wife's name, your kids' names, would love to learn a little bit more about
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. My wife is Grace. She's a teacher. She's been teaching kindergarten and working in public schools. This is the end of year 13 for her. We have two kids, daughter Hope, she'll be 5 in June. So we just say she's 5 now at this point. And our son Jonathan, he just turned 2. They're awesome, exhausting. We waited almost 8 years to have kids, and it was a really cool idea. But now at almost 38, with a 2-year-old and 5-year-old, I'm like, ooh, tired. I'm tired, man. But
Yeah,
they're
I
awesome.
bet.
They're a joy
Did they
to have.
get out on the water with you at all? Have you gotten a fly rod in either of their hands yet? What's the
I
what's the story there?
tried with my daughter, and she's a little timid. She's gone fishing with me a couple of times. My son Jonathan, he's interested. He likes to go in and like sit while I'm tying. He likes to sit in my lap and watch me tie. But trying to figure that out a little bit. Maybe this summer, get him out with me as it warms up, because my daughter will only go out on the boat with me if the weather is perfect. She doesn't want to be in cold. She doesn't want to be in too hot. She doesn't want it to rain. She doesn't want it to be too sunny. So yeah, but no, man. Hopefully, I just picked up to. I'm a fly fishing guy, but I picked up one of those like spinning reels that has the
Mhm.
trigger on it
Yeah,
for her for this summer. So yeah, I'm excited
yeah.
to get her out with it.
Your daughter sounds like a true client. Doesn't want to
Yes,
go in any bad conditions.
she's
They get
ready. She's ready to be a
a little
client.
overcast and they're ready to cancel that trip.
Yeah, yeah. She's ready to be a client for sure.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. And well, I'd love to hear more about Spotted Dog Outfitters. So,
yeah,
how long have you been guiding? What's been your story, kind of growing up, getting into guiding, and how did we get to Spotted Dog Outfitters? As well as, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the name.
yeah. So growing up, I was born into a family that was, I would call them outdoorsy. I mean, like my dad loved to camp. We would camp as a family and stuff like that. But the fishing side of it came in. My grandparents had I mean, it might have been a 800 square foot, lake house with a massive screened in porch on Lake Sinclair in Georgia. So I grew up in Milledgeville, Georgia, which is like south middle of the state. Pretty good bass lake there. And they had this, like I said, small lake house there. And so I grew up going there a lot. Like there's these awesome 80s clothes throwback, stuff
Yeah.
of us being out there, and a lot of really fun memories there. And after my granddad passed away in like fifth grade, they sold the house after that and all that kind of stuff. But and just kind of early on, I just always around the water, and I loved it. Just loved fishing. Didn't really care what we were catching or if we were catching, and man, so that kind of stayed with me. I took a break in high school because baseball was my focus. But then in college, one of my buddies, Andy, invited me to go fly fishing with him, and so puts a fly rod in my hand, and we go down the Oconee River, which is it is mud river. It's got like its best game fish is going to be a gar. We were,
Hmm.
throwing at gar before it was cool, and there's some smallmouth in there, and definitely tons of sunfish and brim and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean that was it. That was sophomore year of college, and man, it was just like, yes, this is different. This is what I want to do. And so that was in 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. And I'd already been guiding doing some backpacking trips. So I went to military high school and we did some backpacking and stuff then. But I started guiding backpacking trips as well. And so that guide kind of mentality, taking my knowledge and passing it on and bringing people with me was something it was just instilled in me early on. But started guiding fly fishing around 2006, and man, just love it. I started originally doing it because I was running an outdoor ministry, so I was working with college students and men's groups from churches, taking them fishing, and taking them backpacking and stuff like that. And so and I was able to actually do that full time until 2019. So I did it all through there. But throughout that time, I also I had a dog. His name was Hank. He's an English setter, Llewellyn English setter. So they're the bigger English setter. He was 70 pounds or so, something like that. Man, just this idea of spotted dog comes from him. And so if you look at our logo, it's actually a side profile of a picture of him that a buddy of mine took, put a brown trout pattern in and stuff like that. But I love the idea of a spotted dog, that name, and kind of basing it around his personality. He was incredibly loyal. He was kind. He wasn't, I mean, he's a dog, so he's still maybe still did dumb things and stuff like that. But like there was
Yeah.
just this calm, peaceful. I'm not just here for myself. I'm here to be with people and to enjoy the time kind of presence with him. And not to get weird and dog worship and all that stuff, but you know what I mean. Like I just like
Hmm.
I loved him. He was a great dog, man. And so we went originally. I was like, oh, spotted dog anglers, yeah, that'll be a great name. And it was cool, but I was like, at some point we want to do more than just fishing. I mean, you've talked about that, like the hope to have a lodge and have a fly shop, and so to grow what we're doing. And even we were getting a puppy actually in 2 weeks, and we want to start breeding on our own as well. And so just kind of we went outfitters with the name because it allows us to do more with it versus having to go back and change the name and do all that stuff. So we started pretty broad, even though right now we're only doing fishing trips. We will do, and hopefully in 2024, we'll start doing some turkey hunts as well, officially underneath the banner as well. So, anyways, so yeah, man, that's a kind of a short version of it. But man, just to honor my first dog that was like my dog from birth, all the way through, and he was 14, so he was a part of everything that me and my wife have experienced together. We got him a couple months into our relationship, or I got him. We weren't that
Mhm.
couple. We started dating and got a puppy together. But we we so he was just there for so much, man. It meant a
Yeah,
lot to us. It was a cool way to honor him, but then also like it's a pretty sweet logo too. So he turned
yeah, it's
Hank's
an
the
awesome
logo.
logo.
So yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, and I remember the first time I think we talked about this. You kind of mentioned that like throughout your guiding career, when you had them for a long time, people always came back and remembered the spotted dog, and that was a
yep.
big part of your kind of symbol. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was, yeah, again, he was one of those dogs that like was happy to see everybody. He was an ornery. He was going to sleep. He didn't give a rip about what was going on the boat or anything. He was excited. He didn't like to swim, so clients loved him because he stayed out of the water. So
Yeah,
he wasn't like spooking fish and stuff. But yeah, he was great, man. Great dog.
that's awesome. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
have loved to meet him, but it sounds like you'll have more. You'll have more dogs running
yeah,
around.
yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I would love to go into some of your trips. So, like, what, in your opinion, really sets you apart from other guides? What would you say is a part of going on an experience with you, with one of your guides at Spotted Dog Outfitters that just kind of sets it apart from everything else?
Yeah. So um, this is honestly a question that people have asked, and people love to know the difference. For me, I think something that sets us apart, one of the main things is just our approach to it is kind of more of a Western style fishing trip. And so, what I mean by that is, um, I was blessed to be able to guide out west for 6 years in Montana. And so, what happens out west is the whole day is around the experience. And so, trying to do everything with excellence. When you come on a trip with us, we're not going to hand you a turkey sandwich for lunch. We're going to have like something that's better, whatever. It depends on in the winter, like I get up really, really early and I will grill and make chicken and have it sitting in there. I'll have black beans and rice and a roll. So like, and then when we go to lunch, like, hey man, here's a nice plate and a napkin. Like it's not just like, hey man, eat this, 2-day old burger that I warmed up for you this morning at
Yeah.
8 and it's 4 hours later. So one of the things that sets us apart is food. And I wouldn't say that that's honestly that different than some of the other people. But in general, you're going to get handed a turkey sandwich. There's definitely some other people that I've got a buddy who he busts out a grill on the side of the river and does,
The
so
old
we do
Traeger.
some of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is, but like truly like crafting the day around the people. I think one of the examples of that with food was I had a lady who called me and she was like, "Hey, we've got our diet just completely changed. My husband had just a bunch of medical stuff, and she was like, "Man, I can't eat bread. I can't eat this. I can't eat this." And I was like, "All right." And so my wife loves Pinterest, so I was like, "Hey, they can't eat all this. Pinterest what you think that what are some cool things?" And so we put together this really cool like charcuterie board for them, and like I'd never done that on a trip. We'd done it at parties or whatever with friends, but like to take something like that and just be able to craft it directly for what they needed, man. They sing our praises, like they comment on everything we post, like this is the greatest trip ever. And we really didn't have that good of a fishing day, if I'm honest, when they came. Like they had a couple shots, but we didn't. We landed a few fish, but what they remembered was how well I tried to serve them for what they wanted. They had never
Mhm.
spent money on a guided trip before because they thought it was a waste of money, and but they were celebrating his retirement, and so I just wanted to make that day special. And so one way I feel like that makes this different is really trying to craft the food around who is coming. And so like when it's a father son trip, I'm not throwing in dad snacks and stuff like that. I'm throwing in Snickers. I'm throwing in, stuff that I know a 10 to 12-year-old guy or girl is going to, like stuff like that. So just trying to be intentional with that approach. And then the main thing, honestly, it really is, I feel like, and it's weird because you feel like you're advertising something that's the opposite. So, but like humility, man, I really, one, I don't think I'm the best guide out there. Don't I know there's dudes that have been guiding way longer than me that are going to know way more than me, and I don't have a problem admitting that. I care for my clients a lot, to the point where if somebody calls me and they're like, "Hey, I'd love to go with you, man. I just want to throw streamers. I'm this," and I'll tell them, I'm like, "Hey, man, we can go, and I will definitely show you how to throw streamers from an intro level." And that's something actually I love about the y'all's yeah the program of GoGuide and using that, because I can say on there what's my style of fishing. What do I like? Because I'm a hopper dropper guy, guiding out wet. Like, man, that is the setup out
Yeah.
west, you know.
Yeah.
And so for me, but tying that into when someone calls me and they're like, "Hey, man, I want to go streamer fishing." Okay, so one, I've been trying to build out my team so that I can have like the streamer guy, but at the same time, that's not where we're at right now. So I've got another guy who is a totally different company, and he's actually like competition. He's on mainly the same rivers I am. He even does hosted trips in Montana, just like me. But when it comes to streamers, I know my buddy Daniel Bowman's he's gonna be the streamer guy that's gonna take them past what I can do intro and catching fish when it's muddy and stuff like that. He's gonna really be able to serve them well. And so I think for me, the humility side of saying, instead of looking at it just from a business side, because it is, at some point it is a business. You got to fish in the rain. You're going to have bad days. Yes, the moon phases matter, like we were talking about earlier, but at the same time, I'm not saying, hey, the moon phase isn't good, let's not fish, because there is a business side to it. But at the same time, trying to balance that with serving a client when I know that I may not be the guy for what they're looking for.
Hmm.
And being okay to pass that off, and even if that means that day I'm not even on the water because I passed that trip off, being okay with that, and being humble enough to know, like, hey, at the end of the day, I want that person to, even if they don't become my client anymore, if they move off and they go with him forever because they had such a great experience, one that builds camaraderie between me and the other guides, but then also, great, what we did was we teamed up, and now we've got another person who is calling and asking for guides, who's telling their friends, and they've sent me. I've had it happen where I pass off a trip and they send another person to me because they're like, "Hey, this guy made sure I was taken care of. Go with them, man." So, anyways, and so
Hmm.
it really is, so crafting the food, man, and then just trying to be humble in our approach with the way we do it, and truly enjoying it. Just having a good time.
Yeah.
I won't let guys that are old curmudgeons, and not old in age, but just old in their soul and the way they carry themselves. They won't guide with me. I
Hmm.
want because I want clients to have fun, man. Like, we were laughing today. I mean, it was raining very hard for at least 20 minutes on us today.
Yeah.
And we were having a good time, man. We were laughing about it. The fishing sucked while it was raining, but
Yeah.
we were having a good time, man, cracking jokes. And these guys are from, Idaho. They've literally fished the salmon and the snake, and they're coming here and fishing the Toccoa in North Georgia with me. And I'm like, hey, man, we're killing it today. We caught like 20, 14-inch browns. And then, they're like, we're the big fish.
Yeah.
And we're just giving each other a hard time, like, but at the same time being just good hosts. So, and I
Yeah.
think that kind of ties in those two things together, the crafting the food and making sure people are taken care of. And then, the humble approach when, like, someone comes with a specific ask. So it's just hosting well, man. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I'm kind of hearing is like it's almost the little things that make the biggest difference. Um, Showing that fine attention to detail, making sure that every client is taken care of, even if they're not actually paying you,
Hmm.
is so important for that. Just like getting your name out there. I think that's
Yeah.
something that people can take away as just something that's important in life for sure.
Yeah. I also, when a guy starts guiding with me or a girl starts guiding with me, I have them write out 50 questions that aren't yes or no questions, and I get them to laminate them and drop them in their guide box, because
Mhm.
you've been on trips, man, where it's like, all right, well, I kind of asked you all the questions about where do you work, where's your family, we got 3 more hours on this trip, and it's just a thing to go to. It's like, hey, man, if you had $1 million that you had to give away, what would you do with it? Just like random questions like that to keep the conversation going too, makes a huge difference. So, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, that's super. I actually love that. I think that's a pretty cool thing because I mean there are times when you go on a guide trip and run out of things to talk, and you're kind of like, especially if you're the client on the day, You're kind of like,
Yeah.
aren't they supposed to make conversation? You don't want to
Yeah.
like put in the work to like make the conversation.
Yeah, man, because we can control only a few things, honestly, guiding. I think when clients come on, they're like, "Oh man, the guide is going to control all these things." No, man, I can't control the weather. I can't control river flows. I can't control what time a hatch is coming off. I can't control whether or not you can cast or listen or want to leave. What I
Yeah,
can control is the food. I can control the atmosphere in our boat, and keeping it lighthearted and I can control how much I listen to you on the front end to make this trip special for you. So that's my approach.
yeah, I love that. Um, well, so tying into that, I mean, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on what do you think it really is to be a guide for you throughout your experience? I know that you have talked to a lot of people in the industry, like you've definitely met a bunch of people within the industry in Tacoma and Montana and
Mhm.
interacted with them. Um, what are kind of your thoughts on the people that stand out as the best guides? What do you think it is that they do to make that happen?
One, I think anytime someone has a make room for people at the table personality, a welcoming presence. Um, Me and you have talked about Rooster out there at Stonefly and Outfitters. His personality is just magnet, man. Like he is. Yes, I'm sure he's a guy at the same time, so he'll give you too hard of a time at some point or something like that. But when you see someone who is just like very much themselves, very comfortable in their own skin, but still has room for other people, it's not just their show. I think that makes a huge difference, man. I think that when I think about guides, and even when I'm looking for people to hire, I I always want them to be personal. You got to push through. If you're not a morning person, okay, that's fine. You can do that and still be a guide, but you got to suck it up and be a morning person on the days you're on the water. If you're having a bad day, you gotta be able to like recoup from, man, we just missed this big fish, we'll get another one, let me tie on for the thousandth time. You kind of got to be able to run the grinder and the gauntlet and still keep a
Hmm.
good attitude, um, because you're gonna just watch. We were joking about earlier, what do everybody always says, oh man, you must get to fish all the time. It's like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
we get to watch our flies get hung in trees, our knots break, and people miss fish, and so you got to be willing to go through all that stuff and still stay cool and calm and collected and having an actual joy and happiness. Some people may disagree with that and say you can be um, upset when things are go, and that's fine. That is definitely a style. But I think for me, the most successful guides that I see in our industry are people who make room for other people. It's not just about them. They understand that at the end of the day, it's just fishing. It has nothing to do with their identity when it comes down to like, are they a success or a failure as a person? It's like, hey, no, man, it was a fishing day. We had time on the water. I did what I could to host you well, and we'll book you again next year. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're in this industry, well, in all industries, really. I mean, there's always like a lot of egos, and
Sure.
in my opinion, I really have seen just like the best true guides and outfitters out there are the ones with the like allow people to sit at the table, leave room for people, bring them in.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of people where like they see the quietest person in the room and try to reach out and grab them and pull them into the conversation. Like that, that's a really
Yeah.
that's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. I mean, because when someone shows up to go fishing with you, you get two types of people, and there's not a lot of people in the middle. You get the intimidated, I'm not good enough, I just paid a lot of money, I hope this is worth it person, or you get the, I really just needed someone to row a boat for me. Don't talk to me too much and try and critique me. There's not a lot of guys in the middle, or girls in the middle of that. And so I think when you're a guide, you really have to be like able to kind of balance both because may have one of each in your boat with you. I did a couple
Hmm.
of days ago. I had a dad and a son. Dad's in his 60s. I've been fly fishing longer than you've been guiding. Yeah, he was awesome. He was funny. He was a great dude, but he didn't. When he would hang up in a tree and break off, he goes, "Hand me a fly and some tippet. I'm tying on." I was like, "All right, fine." And so I was just like, because he didn't want me to, do it. But his son on the front ended up out fishing him and all that because he had such a good positive attitude about it. And I think the guys that like really are successful, um, man, they just know how to be in both places in the same boat. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Kind of get a
full
little
weight.
temp check on the client and understand how to react to that and how to
Mm-hmm.
adjust your day to the client, essentially.
Yeah, and not take it personally. Like, yeah, for sure. So.
Definitely. Cool. Tell me a little bit about the different rivers you fish, the different trips that you offer, and then I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to hear, without you giving away too much, a little sneak peek into what you're planning to create at Spotted Dog Outfitters.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. So we mainly are on the Toccoa, the tailwater there. That's kind of what we would call home at this point. We got some applications for some permitted areas other outside of that, both on the wade side and on the float side. But Forest Service permits have been super weird since COVID. If you already had them, they're easy to keep, but the application process is kind of gotten lagged out, and so we're waiting on that a little bit. But we're also on the South Holston, the Watauga, and then and those are our floats, our three main float areas. And then we have some smallmouth trips that we're doing this summer on the lower Hiwassee. So there's a section of the Hiwassee in Tennessee that you have to have a Forest Service permit, and then there's a section that is open because it's all private land, and so we're floating on that for some smallmouth and walleye as well. And so those will be our four main float areas. We also do some wade trips on those. I don't push wade trips a ton because I think if you're a new angler, it's actually easier for you to fish from a boat than it is to wade. And so I try to push people to just, hey, even if it's just a half day, go half day, float with me. But we also do some private water in North Georgia. We partner with a couple other outfitters and have access to a couple other waters as well in the Blue Ridge area that are private water. If you want to go, man, there's nothing more fun than like a dad with his 10-year-old son catching these. And we don't post all the photos, but these just hog pellet pigs, and we've talked about the
Yeah,
soakweed and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it's just fun.
yeah,
It's not our bread and butter by any means. That's not what um, we won't say no to those trips or anything like. But that's not the one I'm going to push because I like float trips myself. I've always
hmm,
just been a proponent of that, and um, so those are our main four right there. Yeah, those. Yeah, I was actually
yeah,
super thankful. Plugging those into your system and getting to differentiate them made it a lot easier because what we were using before was send us an email and we'll try to talk through this. It was like a 6-step thing to get them to the river they wanted on the date, man. And GoGuide's has been awesome to be able to just plug in specifics and stuff. So, yeah.
I appreciate
Um,
that.
as we, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. As we grow, our hope, man, my dream has always been to own a lodge. um, Heck, why not three? I don't know. But my dream would be to bring again the style of what they do out west to the southeast. I won't get into the river and the style and all that stuff, but just when you step into a lodge out west, you're stepping into, man, it just feels like presence. Like it's just like, oh yeah, we got a week ahead of us of fishing. And I'm not saying that there's nothing like that in the Southeast, but a lot of times what you find in the Southeast right now is like me and you are going to go in on a cabin. We're going to call it a lodge, but you're not going to be able to float into it. It's going to be more like a really nice base camp. What we're wanting to build is on the water, float in, float out, start here, but also be um, a presence to other guide services if they want to swing in for lunch. Man, we can have lunch ready, or they can swing in and have a nice lunch and keep going. They can use our boat ramp, and so just creating a little bit of a wholehearted approach to it. but yeah, like I said earlier, we want to do some hunting as well. I love bird hunting, upland hunting, love deer hunting, I love turkey hunting. I'll even get dirty with some hog hunting too. Back when growing up,
Mhm.
but man, it's just I really want to be a true outfitter, and in my mind, it's not just being on the water. It's what do you do outside of that? Can I book my housing, my food, um, and other things through you? Can you take care of like a package deal for me and truly outfit my whole trip? And so
Mhm.
that's our goal. We don't have like a we're going to do this in 4 years kind of thing. That's not it. We're looking for the right property right now. We're actually looking for the right partner as well. We've got one. We're looking for a third partner as well. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. And then me and you've talked about some hosted trips too. That's something that we would love to continue to grow. We currently do one hosted trip in Montana, and we've tried to do a hosted trip in Louisiana last year, but the group of guys ended up there was some sickness in the family or something like that, and they backed out at the last minute.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, those are kind of those are our hopes right there for the future. So yeah, we're excited,
Awesome.
and my wife's
I
excited
love,
too. Great, I'm not just
yeah, absolutely. I love the community aspect that I'm hearing of this lodge area where it's you keep that humility. It's not a lodge because it's completely exclusive, even though for the client it should feel that way. But like you let other guides use it, you let other guides be a part of it and create a community around that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean the idea with it, honestly, there's a part of it where I would love to like have a green space, have a casting pond there that hey man, you got a new client, man, if you're using our boat ramps, don't get them on the man, come over here to the casting pond, teach them how to cast. Like let's do clinics together. And so again, I know that you can get too community oriented when it comes to business sometimes and like lose some business effectiveness. And so trying to straddle that line well though, again, I think it's a lot like when I call somebody with a trip because I know I'm not the streamer guy. I'm trying to find that person for them. Um, I think it's kind of has a similar heart with it, man. It's just like, man, we're all doing the same thing. I've got some resources that you don't have. You got some resources that I don't have. Let's figure out how to make this the best thing as possible for our clients. So,
That's awesome. Um, and then so one thing that I wanted to kind of pick your brain about is just your business. I know that it's
mm-hmm.
a younger business as far as like you've been
Mm-hmm.
guiding for a long time, but Spotted Dog Outfitters
Right.
is on the younger side of things. I still think that you guys have been really successful. I feel like you have your name out there.
Yeah.
I think I recently saw your Instagram grew a lot just recently.
I don't know what
Don't know.
happened. Yeah. I
I'd
don't
love
know.
to
I
hear a
don't
little
know.
bit more
We
about
were
that.
like, we were like 6,000 followers. And a lot of that was like friends, family, and clients kind of stuff. And then we're at like 12,500, which is still in the Instagram world isn't nothing. But that happened in like 3 months. It's just like we started posting reels just consecutively and consistently, and it grew. That's crazy. So I don't know. Instagram's weird, man. I don't know the algorithm. I can't figure it out for anything
Yeah.
in this world. So.
Sounds like you figured something out. So keep doing what you're doing. That's for sure. What would you say for the business success that you have had as a
hmm
businessman, as somebody, um, as an entrepreneur?
hmm
What do you feel like has kind of been the most important part of that, and how do you see yourself continuing to gain success over time? What's been that mentality?
Man, that's a great question. I think one of the things that I've been the most proud of it really is the community that I've been able to bring. I think when you talk about like popularity and growth quickly, I think it has a lot to do with making room for other guys. Like when I came into a new area of fishing, I wasn't saying, "Hey, I'm the new guy. Let me in here." It was like, "Hey guys, just let you know, I try to introduce myself to every guide I see on the river that I don't know." At the boat ramp, I don't try and like bombard them on the river, but if I see them at the boat ramp, introducing myself. I met two new guys today, and they're not new to fishing, but I just met them for the first time today. And I think that that has been the thing that I'm the most proud of, man. Honestly, is we've gotten our name out there through being kind, being aware, like say, hey, man, this is what we were having success on. It's fine if you don't want to tell me what you were having success on, you know. But I think more than anything, having something that I can dream with my wife that we could possibly pass down to our kids at some point. Who knows? Who knows what this actually going to look like at that point, or even if they like the outdoors. Hopefully they do.
I think
But
they will.
yeah, probably. They will like it. I'm just kidding. No, I think it's one of those things, man. I'm proud of the opportunity to host well, the success in hosting well, but then also just the thing being able to build something with my wife and include her. What I was able to do before guiding with other companies and running a big nonprofit organization doing wilderness programming, didn't really have a seat at the table for her. And it's been really cool, like getting her to be able to be a part of this. And like, she's the one who grew up breeding dogs. And so like her and her parents had a pretty successful business breeding labs for years. And so she's the one who's like, oh, you know what would be really cool underneath spotted dogs to be able to do that. And so like she's got a passion and a dream behind that. I like dogs. I don't know anything about breeding them except for you let them do their thing and you raise the puppies. I don't know. But like, you know, and so for me, man, like that's the thing that I'm proud of is just the ability to make this a family thing and to continue to grow. So yeah. I don't
I
know if
love
that
that. I
answers.
think that
Uh,
totally does. I mean,
okay.
that's super powerful. Just having the
Yeah.
family, like that dream that's a combined, like everybody's kind of dreaming about it.
Mhm.
Everybody around you is kind of thinking about the same thing. I think is super important, especially with the person that you're spending your life with. That's for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, so you just mentioned the fact that you worked with a nonprofit before. Love to hear a little bit
Mhm.
more about that. What was the nonprofit about? Kind of what was your role there?
Yeah, so what I was doing before, it was a nonprofit ministry, and that was the one I was talking about, that we would do the wilderness programming and stuff. But what I realized was for me, um, the place that I wandered the most in my life, and we can talk about it from a Christianity side of things or a spiritual side of things if you want, but really just looking at life to just zoom out to make it, you know, more room for everybody to kind of draw something out of this. It's like, man, I didn't have any mentors when I was in college age, in the 18 to 24-year-old window. My family growing up wasn't bad. My dad worked hard. We had some tumultuous family stuff going on, but it just wasn't really safe for me, you know. And so when I graduated high school and went into that next stage, I just wasn't ready, man. So it's hard to say I wasn't ready without anyway, there's a joke, but it was, anyways, it's just one of those things that like when I went into that stage of being 18 on my own, and I was now responsible for all my own bills. Um, there was no like safety in the law. If I broke the law, there's no underage. Like you're accountable. You know, so the accountability was heavy, but the initiation into that was not. And so I had just a heart for it, guys, 18 to 24 years old. And so what I got to do was, in the Christian faith, we would call it discipling, but in general, it's mentoring with a purpose. And so I got to mentor college students, teach them how to fly fish, teach them how to um, become better young men, and not better meaning that they didn't do bad things, but understanding who they are, helping them find a passion and a purpose and a path. Um, and then also teach them how to fly fish and host trips and stuff like that. Because I would hire them during the summer; they would be my guides, and we would host trips in Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana for groups of church guys who were like, "Hey, we want guys that we know we can trust to host us on these things." So we put together all the logistics for them, partnering with local guide shops in Colorado and Wyoming, but then in Montana being the guys who were taking them on multi-day trips and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I mean, I got to do that for a long time. It was really cool to I started that when I was actually 21 years old. I created that nonprofit and was able to do it until I was, let's see, I guess whenever 2019 would be. Yeah. So pretty cool. So
That's incredible. definitely something to hang your hat on. That's super cool. Um, and then so nonprofit side of things, I know that was more aligned with your faith, more aligned with mentoring other
Mm-hmm.
people, which I think, by the way, is one of the most important things. Just being
Mm-hmm.
able to pass on what you know to somebody that is kind of lost. Like
Yeah.
I had a mentor in college that was massive for me, and without her, I don't know where I would be right now.
Right. Yeah.
So I think mentors are worth their weight in gold, is what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so I'm big on the conservation side of things. So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear if you have any passion there, and if you have any passion there, kind of how does that blend into a day with you on a guided trip?
Man, that's a great question. We've actually been asking ourselves, me and the two, three other guys that guide with me, we've been kind of, so what's the thing that we're going to partner with? I do some, Project Healing Waters work. I'll go hang out with a couple of them, do some clinics and stuff like that. And, um, big, involved with, Fly Fishing International. We're Trout Unlimited members, but like, those are organizations that it's easy to be a member and a part of, but not really do anything. At the same time, you kind of check the box if I'm a member. It's easy to do it with them. They do great work. I'm not saying anything about their organization. I'm just saying at a member level, I've been a member of Trout Unlimited, I don't know, 15 years. I don't know. And I've been to one committee local meeting, but I'm a member. So for me, conservation, I think for me, knowing what, like how I'm wired, I've got to take conservation to my own level. And so what that means for me is, if I see trash on the river, I'm picking it up. If I even like when you tie on the flies and you get that little piece of tippet, that's micro trash. So I've got a couple of trash cans on my boat, man. Fish Pond. I'm not sponsored by Fish Pond at all, but they've got these fantastic little trash cans and the bigger ones that look like 20-ounce ones that you can put on your boat that make a huge difference. Those little pieces of tippet and stuff like that, man. If every guide on the river clipped off a little piece of tippet for every time they hung and didn't, there'd be so much plastics, building up, and there are already. But for me, conservation looks like just trying to be intentional with that stuff, making sure my clients aren't dropping like micro trash and stuff like that. So when they tear off a piece of a wrapper or something, it doesn't fall out. I make sure all that stuff finds trash cans and stuff like that. But honestly, from an organization and company side of things, we're really trying to figure out, all right, like who's the one that we're going to go with. There's 1% for the planet. There's like some great companies and stuff like that, that you can partner with. But that's a question we're trying to answer on a bigger kind of scale for us, is like, what percentages are we going to kind of pay it forward, give back, whatever terminology works for you in that. But then we also participate in river cleanups. So when there's a Tacoma River cleanup in the South Holston, we're part of those floats, even on rivers that we don't guide on for permit reasons, but we fish as just the guide's day off kind of fishing. Like we try to be available for those as well. And so conservation for me, it's not only keeping what we have clean, but it's passing on the passion for this, this earth that we've been given. And so for me, I think conservation is not only making sure micro trash and not macro trash as well stays out of the river, but passing that on when we are talking to clients, like, hey man, I'm clipping these off and I'm throwing these in here, just because if we didn't, man, it would just be so much trash. And so passing that knowledge on, but then also, man, talking to them about trout habitat, why we don't take guide trips in August for trout because it's way too hot in general. I mean, some years you can, but could talk about river temps, talk about trout. Why do we do catch and release for the most part? That kind of stuff. That conservation aspect is not just trash oriented for us. It's also like care and health and well being of the fish and the fishery. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always thought that guides are kind of the key to the industry in that way. And I mean, there's a reason for it. Companies have already figured it out. There's a reason there's pro staffs, and guides are the ones that are on the pro staffs, because guides get to spend their day with 150 clients,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 250 clients over a year, and they're touching each one of those people and that experience is a learning one. So
Yep.
you can either learn to fish the right way
Yep.
and learn to fish the right way with conservation in mind, with the right techniques in mind, the way to keep the fishery safe, or you cannot.
Yeah.
And big companies have already figured this out with, we give our guides, our pro staff, the rods to fish with because the client fishes with the rod. They go, oh, what kind of rod
Mm-hmm.
this is this? This is great. Then they buy it, right? But if we can get guides to really be that turnkey of like every person that they touch on the water is a learning experience that's a positive one. Learning about the fishery. Why do we do this? Why do we do
Mm-hmm.
that? What's
Mm-hmm.
so important about keeping the fish wet? Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to take it. And when they go fish by themselves, they're going to remember that. Oh, I remember that incredible guide that I had, like telling me about this. And hopefully, they buy a little fish pond trash can, which
Yeah.
we're not
Right.
sponsored by Fish Pond either, but
Yeah.
I do love those things.
Yeah. I think that, and I have a lot of conversations with people who are like, "Oh man, them dang spin fishermen here in the southeast, they're keeping all the fish, all that stuff." But man, even in that, I'm like, okay, but how much did you pay for your license? Cool, they did too. Like that's because conservation, even in that, it's weird and it's a messy conversation. It is, but also like I think they do a pretty good job of keeping the river clean. It's not there's got to be some type of relationship there where it works well or it just doesn't. And so, yeah, man, the conservation is interesting here in the southeast because of the population density and the use of the river is multi-use. Like make the joke of the kayak hatch that starts in Memorial Day and goes through Labor Day because there's just so many tubers and boaters. But like at the end of the day, it's not those rivers aren't just for fly fishermen or fisherwomen or whatever. Like it's it's for everybody, and so it's for rec use all over. So anyway, I mean, conservation is. I think we get. I do. I keep saying we like everybody, but I know for me, speak for me. It's I get locked into. Well, I'm keeping my trash out, but what I've just kind of learned over the years to do is, all right, let me zoom out a little bit further. What's a bigger conversation we can have about conservation? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me know when you find an organization, and I'll be a part of helping them out
Cool.
too. I think, in my opinion, I've seen guides associations in general. I think that they do some of just like the best work. I'm sure there's good and there's
Mm-hmm.
bad ones out there, but guide associations in general, the people that are on the water using the resource, touching it every single day, and understand it, like I mean, because it's their job to understand it. Um, Having them affect policy change, I think, has been huge. I've seen what the Saltwater Guide Association has done.
Mm-hmm.
So guide associations, I think, are an awesome start for sure.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
Um, well, yeah. I mean, as we're wrapping up here, I kind of just want to open it up to you. Is there anything that you want to touch on? Anything that you'd like to have the world hear about Spotted Dog Outfitters, about yourself, or anything like that?
Man, I think we covered most of the stuff, honestly. Like, if I'm being honest and thinking through it, I'm like, I think we covered mostly everything. I think, man, we would love to get you on the water with us. If you are a person who's never cast a fly rod before, don't worry. We would love to get you on the water and kind of start that process of learning what it looks like to fly fish. I've been a part of the grind. Like, it took me almost a year of fly fishing, casting a fly rod before I landed my first fish. Okay. Like, so I've been a part of the grind of learning what it looks like to cast well, and you know, and so I think, yeah, man, we'd love to get you out on the water. We offer not only guide trips, but we do instruction as well. I've taught college classes on fly fishing, so we do casting instruction of traditional fly fishing, but also Euro nymphing, check nymphing instruction as well. And then we do rowing instruction. Man, there's so many people in the last few years have bought a boat and have no idea what to do with them. And so, man, we would love if you're someone who wants to ask more, questions about. It's more than just pointing it down the river. It's getting from this side to that side to being what's the distance between you and where you're trying to get your clients to cast or you to fish. Like, man, we would love to be a resource that's more of and more than just getting you on the water. It's instructional as well, so that you can take your skill sets and go do it on your own. So yeah, we'd love to do that.
Cool. Um, Last question. Um,
Hmm.
there's, I think there's a lack of understanding sometimes out there of, how difficult a guide's job is. It's not easy. I mean, it is an awesome life, but it's not easy. And one of those things is, there's safety that needs to go into it. There's being on the water, you are rowing clients down different types of flows, things like that. What's something that you guys kind of keep in mind when you're thinking about client safety? How do you guys work with that?
Yeah, so it starts with our initial like use the term onboarding. That's not it, but like a initial touch point with a client. I'm going to ask them age, and I'm actually going to ask them, "How's your balance?" I know that that can be kind of a weird question. And then my third question is like, let's talk about sizes, guys. Like, there's just like what am I dealing with? I'm trying to think through the boats. I'm trying to think through the water, and so it starts with me with a 10-minute conversation with each client before they book, like trying to understand who they are and what their needs are to keep them safe on the river. And then we have some standard check downs of everybody wears the belt, waist pack, pull cord, life jacket. And then we've got throw ropes, we got first aid kits. I mean, during COVID, we had these kits that the Forest Service was handing that we had to require that we. So even in that, just because I think it's a lot of times people think, well, safety is going to come down to, man, someone falling in the water and drowning. Okay, that's the worst case scenario, but there's so many other things that happen, whether it's getting a hook stuck in your finger, or when you're stuck in a tree or you set on a fish, those flies come back. We've got every client wears sunglasses to sun care, so we keep sunscreen in the boat. And we don't require, but we encourage and out the gate, like, hey, bring a hat, something wide brim. We're going to be in the sun all day. And so for me, when I think about safety, I kind of zoom out again to like a little bit more of a risk management. What are things that are going to make this day uncomfortable, but then also what are the things that are going to be actually dangerous? So making sure my guides don't, just jerk the boat with the oars, because that'll throw somebody out quick. Making sure that when they drop anchor, it's not just drop anchor and let it roll. It's back row for a few times, slow the boat down, then let the anchor. It's like some wholehearted approach to safety. So it starts with the questionnaire out of the gate, and then all the way through the day, just paying attention to the needs. And even today, like today, when it started raining, the guys were tired. I was like, hey man, y'all just kick back. I'm gonna row through this section. I don't know if there's lightning coming or anything, and so we pulled off to the side, and after rowing through it and kind of waited for the rain to pass through and checking in on there. All right, hey guys, where is your head out right now? Are you good? You guys still with me? Are y'all done? Like, where you at? To safety, not just being the physical side, but like mental safety. And we're not processing trauma out there on the river, but the idea of just like checking in on them and checking up on them. Yeah. So
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, safety is
yeah.
important as a guide for sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty solid. We're sitting at 9:21, so I want to let you get to bed. But yeah,
Cool.
it was
Thanks, man.
absolutely fantastic to just kind of pick your brain on all this stuff, learn more about you.
Sweet, dude.
Cool.
Phil, thanks so much, man, for your time.